When thinking about kanji readings, most people immediately think of two, onyomi and kun'yomi. But there's actually a third type which goes unmentioned despite it being used daily. Unlike onyomi and kun'yomi, which balance each other out as general reading systems, nanori stands apart with a very specific role. It isn't used for everyday words, it's reserved almost entirely for names. There's also a lot surrounding nanori which I will talk about. But first, let's go a little bit more in depth about what nanori readings actually are. Generally, they trace back to two main sources. First, some are unique readings chosen just for names, sometimes to make them stand out or to sound more elegant. These don't always connect clearly to the kanji's normal readings and may be really far off, actually. Second, many nanori preserve older, now obsolete readings. Ones that have disappeared from everyday Japanese, but they've survived in names because names tend to be more conservative and hold on to tradition. And obviously passing names down from generation to generation is a thing too. That's one reason names in Japanese can be so unpredictable. A kanji you thought you knew may suddenly have a reading you've never seen before. And it only makes sense because of the concept of nanori. Another important thing is that nanori aren't standardized in the same way as onyomi and kun'yomi. These alternative nanori readings of kanji may not even show up in normal dictionaries because there's so many unique readings. Instead, you'll usually find them in name-specific resources or databases. To give an example, take the kanji ichi. Normally you'd expect ichi or hitotsu, but as a nanori it might be read as kazu, in names like kazuo here. Without knowing about nanori, you'd likely never guess that. Because of this, nanori add both flexibility and complexity to Japanese names. They let parents choose characters with meanings they like while still giving them the freedom on how the name is pronounced. This is why two people with the exact same kanji in their names might actually pronounce them completely differently. Aside from nanori, there is also another important rule for Japanese names. This one is less about language and more related to society. This is where the Jinmeiyo kanji come in. Jinmeiyo kanji are the characters that the Japanese government has officially approved for use in personal names. They exist alongside the Joyo kanji, which are the standardized characters taught in schools and used in everyday writing. But not every kanji is considered practical or easy enough to appear in the Joyo list. That's why the government created a separate list just for names. When the Jinmeiyo list was created in 1951, it only had about 90 characters. But over time, more and more kanji were added because people wanted greater freedom in choosing names. Today, there are over 860 Jinmeiyo kanji recognized. What makes this list unique, though, is that many of these kanji aren't common in modern Japanese writing. You might not see them in newspapers or novels, but you'll find them on birth certificates, ID cards, and family registers. I guess aside from the names of people in the newspapers, though. Parents often choose these kanji because they carry positive or lucky meanings. For example, Sho is a popular choice in boys' names, Aoi is common in girls' names, and Shun is another favorite, symbolizing excellence. A lot of kanji even made it onto the list specifically because of demand. The kanji Yu, meaning distant or calm, wasn't in the Joyo list at first, but it was added to the Jinmeiyo list because so many parents wanted to use it for names. There are also odd-style variants of kanji that are only legal to use in names thanks to the list. For example, the normal character for Shima is this, but it also has this older form which is approved for use in names. That's why you'll see surnames like these both read as Shimada. But even with these official rules, Japanese names remain complex, mainly due to the nanori readings. The Jinmeiyo list controls which kanji can be used, while nanori introduces special rules for how they're read. And that's really why both systems matter so much. Without the Jinmeiyo list, parents would be restricted to only the standard Joyo kanji, which would make names feel less expressive and limit traditions. You could definitely see the push for more kanji being added as well, as the 92 kanji from 1951 has risen to over 860 kanji. The list ensures that families can still use meaningful, historical, or beautiful characters that might or already have disappeared from everyday writing, all while making sure people can still understand the names they're seeing, which is pretty important. On the other hand, without nanori, names would lose a lot of their individuality. Everyone's name would follow the same patterns, and unique connection between meaning, sound, and identity would be much weaker even if it is easier to understand. So nanori gives the freedom to match the sound they want with the meanings they want, even if it breaks the normal rules of kanji readings. Together, Jinmeiyo and nanori create a pretty good balance between regulation and creativity. The government provides boundaries by deciding which kanji are allowed, but within those boundaries, family can play with readings and traditions to create names that are personal and unique. Or even use their old generational names, which I think is one of the most important things as far as names go. This is also why Japanese names are such a strong reflection of culture. They preserve older forms of writing, they carry meanings that parents hope will guide their children, and they allow flexibility that keeps names from all sounding the same. Though none of this is good for people learning like every other concept, but it is what makes it interesting. It's not only difficult for learners though. As I mentioned earlier, there are independent dictionaries specifically made for Jinmeiyo kanji and nanori readings. Though this is more for parents trying to find a name for their kid compared to someone trying to read a name they see in a newspaper. Similar to the child name books we have in every other language. Another concept I think fits here is Ateji. Ateji is basically the concept of using kanji not for their original meaning, but for their phonetic sound. It can also be the other way around though. Kanji can be chosen for their original meanings, but given a completely unrelated reading. These are seen a lot with old words that currently would be written in kana, but back in the day they would be written in kanji. An old example of this would be sushi. The kanji were not chosen for their meanings, but instead because of the reading of their characters. Then there's also the opposite version of this, where the meaning of the kanji are more important than the readings. The word for tobacco, for instance. The kanji means smoke and grass, however, the reading has nothing to do with the kanji, and it's literally just a loanword. While used in names, this Ateji concept is very closely related to nanori, and you can see how many cool names would be made out of this. Although the Japanese government has been known to crack down on certain names that are having too much fun, known as kira or sparkling names. Which I do understand at some level. Naming your kid Pikachu feels like it should be a crime. Anyways though, that's all. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Bye bye.